I want to welcome all of you to class today. Today's lesson is really important because in 15 minutes on this video, I'm going to try to explain how to write a research paper. There's no way I can do that during this video. So when I say to look at the videos, to watch or read the articles, it's so important that you do so or access the resources in your packet. For your academic notes, we're going to focus on how people integrate sources and what they do wrong. There's a really fun article that if you click on the link here, it will take you to the article. And there are two assignments that I'd like you to do in your academic notes today that tells me that you have read the article. Again, it covers dumb things people do when they integrate information either in quotes or in paraphrases into their articles that drive people, especially English teachers, nuts. So look at the 6 analogies. It's a fun analogy that he uses. Transfer each of those into the first bullet into clear one-sentence rules for a textbook so that I can tell you know what the flaw is so that you don't make it. And the next one, pick 2 of the roles in the second bullet and rank those 6 in order from that career's perspective, how they would look at misusing resources in their articles or in their writing in their career. So that's academic notes. For today, in the next 13 minutes, I'm going to try and cover everything about research writing for you, at least give you the tools so that you can figure this out on your own if you're not in class. Research writing demands your full attention. It demands that you be extremely organized in the way you present information. You're going to be doing a 6 to 8 page research paper, which might sound like a long paper, but it is not a long paper. So you can see that I'm going to talk about 7 different things that you'll need to be doing when you write your research paper. The first thing I want you to think of attorneys if you look at the bullets, attorney's responsibility is to frame a case, search out evidence, present the evidence to a jury, and make a closing argument. You do the same thing when you write a research paper. You frame your topic, and that's what we did last time. You came up with a thesis sentence to decide whether or not how you're narrowing down the topic and whether you're going to focus most of your research paper on the problem itself with the conclusion on the solution, or most of your paper on the solutions to the problem and where we go from here in the conclusion. So you're going to do the same thing, and you have to think that way before you begin writing. This first slide, all of these words in bold are what you need to remember when you write your draft. I would hope that next week when you begin writing, you take a screenshot of this slide and all of these phrases that are in red, that you adapt them for your style. Remember, academic research or research writing, we talked about it last time in class, very objective, clean, data-driven text. So look over all of these bullet points on this slide. The next one, there is an article in Canvas called Plagiarism 101, and what I'm doing in class is asking the students to open it up and read for 5 minutes. They could read for a lot more, but then discussing what they already knew about plagiarism and what they learn new. A lot of times students just get their hands slapped in high school, and that's not what happens in colleges. Students get kicked out of the class, they fail the course, oftentimes they are kicked out of the university for plagiarizing texts. Make sure you understand the difference, what constitutes full-fledged plagiarism versus unintentional plagiarism. Both are serious. So this slide again goes into when plagiarism occurs. Sometimes students intentionally plagiarize, and that's happened to me a few times. It's very uncomfortable for me to talk to them, but that's my job, and so I will call them on it, and there will be no way that students can get anything but a 0 on that assignment. If it's a complete plagiarism assignment, they will fail the course. So make sure that it is your own work and turn it in. I think is a good reminder that you can't get away with that. When we unintentionally plagiarize, it means we are very sloppy and we are not following rules. That's why I wanted you to read that roadkill article at the beginning of class, so that we can get rid of sloppy behavior when we integrate research into our own writing. The other thing about, so that we do not become guilty of plagiarism, for this class, you are responsible to cite in text and also on a works cited page, and those sources and the citations in text and on the works cited need to be correctly done. This one, this video is really important. I want you to stop this recording right now and watch the video. It talks about the best time that we should summarize, quote, and paraphrase. And if you are not at home, I want you to think about your annotated bibliography that you wrote. You, in some ways, summarized a lot of different sources. So I'm not saying to move the entire paragraphs over into your research paper, but in a couple of paragraphs, it would be okay to do that. So you have to find out when it's good to summarize versus quote versus paraphrasing. I'm giving you an unsung rule in this class that you cannot go over 15% plagiarizing. That means you have to limit your quotes extensively. Here's a better way of synthesizing text. If you'll notice, these, even though it's in Latin, the color is what I want you to look at. In these slides, you can see that there are 3 ways to integrate text. Which one is the best way to integrate text? It's certainly the second one, because you can see most of the paragraph is written, the yellow part is written by the student himself or herself. And it shows in that paragraph that this student has quoted or paraphrased or summarized 4 different sources in one paragraph, which is a great research writer. So oftentimes in a high school class, I let students get away with using 1 source per paragraph. But in this class, in a college class, that is not a good strategy. You want to integrate more than 1 source into your body paragraphs. You can, when you quote, there are ways to quote. And I think most of you have learned the term ICE, where you introduce the quote, and then you cite it, and then you explain the quote. Those introductions are called attributions or signal phrases, and I put an example in the short quote of how to use that. So it's better to weave a portion of a sentence into your sentence rather than to quote an entire sentence. Sometimes, however, because a passage is particularly important that the whole thing is there, you will use a long quote. And so I've given you the instructions for using long quotes in your research paper on this slide, with 3 rules to follow. And in this class, I will only allow 1 long quote. If you ever have to alter quotes, you need to use brackets and ellipses. Please read the instructions on what they are, or refer to any of the grammar resources that I have in the essential handouts that will also go over those 2 punctuation skills that you use within quotes. So this slide shows you a bad example of integrating a quote and a better one. The reason why the first one is bad is that quote is just floating out there on its own little island. You can't just put a whole sentence as a quote and strand it without any connection in the sentence with an attribution. So you can see the strong example does that much better. On this slide, there is a video that reviews when ever you use sources, how to cite them. So this is going to be about 20% of your research paper score. It's your important, make sure you understand these 6 rules and make sure you watch this video so that internally in the in-text citations you are doing them right. So review those skills, write your paper. If there's any individual questions, you can talk to me in class. Here's another quick review of when you quote something versus you do not. I created this one a couple of years ago, and it seems to answer a lot of questions students have. Here again is a whole bunch of rules that you follow when you integrate quotes in or sources into your own work. Remember, for example, towards the bottom it says subsequent references. Anytime you use a source the first time, you use the author's full name. From then on, you only refer to them by the last name. Notice again when you use sources, one of the subpoints is that you use active present tense verbs and make sure that you punctuate it correctly. So there's lots of nitpicky rules that I will look extensively for in your research paper. Make sure you refer to this slide often as you are writing each paragraph. This slide goes over verbs that help you to introduce information, quotes, or paraphrases into your writing. These are academic verbs. We've talked about academic verbs a lot in the semester. So here's another list of them. Remember, notice all these verbs are in the present tense. So in class, we are going to do an exercise worth 15 points where you're going to pull out one or more of your sources, and you're going to actually practice writing these 3 exercises. It is an assignment that you will turn in to show me that you understand how to integrate quotes. So read the bullets and complete this assignment and turn it into me in the tray or into the class tray. This is a very important slide that summarizes the majority of sources that you will use and how to cite them internally or in in-text citations. I don't have time to go over them, but you can certainly look at the list and see what it looks like when you cite different types of sources. This shows you the punctuation with the periods. If you're using a short quote, where you put the period. If you're using a long quote, notice it's in a different place. If you're using a caption under a picture, it shows you where to put the period before the citation. So this deals with where to put the period anytime you use parenthetical referencing within a research paper. This one talks about how to create an effective title for a research paper. I do grade your title, and so there are 6 different bullets that that will teach you what to do for a research paper title and some samples of research paper titles. Someone who looks at your paper should be able to read it and know instantly what the paper will be about. Don't ever use cute or creative titles for research papers. For your research paper, you will need to integrate one picture or one chart into your research paper somewhere. This link here will show you how to do that. Make sure you watch that link. This one is another Pressbook article, and this one shows you how to look at sloppy errors. It kind of summarizes a lot of the things that we've talked about today and reviews with you, kind of cementing in your mind what you need to do when you write your research paper. So your homework, you have a lot of homework before next Monday when I see you again. I want you to read one of the research essays in your packet. And as you read it, I want you to make at least 10 annotations on every page of things you're noticing, what the student did, whether or not it's correct or incorrect, and what you're learning about looking at those sample research papers in your packet, so that you can learn from somebody else what you need to do as you start writing. The next thing that I want you to do is to organize your essay, how you're going to begin, create the body, and the conclusion. And I'm done.